So I'm about to go on a little rant because earlier I posted a video of me explaining this headband and they hit me so hard in the head you're gonna see me have to repeat myself. Not only that, they like cropped out all the other like stuff that I had to say. So I hate all that editing or whatever, but basically with this headband is it can show you different raw EEG brainwaves. And obviously I'm so mad because I'm kind of getting hit right now, but I'm not able to record and then make this video at the same time. So there's a lot of different like ocular movement that it's good at recording. I think like every time I move my eyes, I'm able to see it. And they're looking at the muscle in your eye and then it's registering to this brainwave thing. So if you're getting hit with that pulse radio frequency, what I was trying to say is that you could possibly show like a little bit of seizure activity just from like how much your eyes are actually shaking back and forth in that muscular space. I saw that some of you guys get hit very, very, very hard. Like I said, this is my first time ever getting hit in the head. And it's because I refuse to post that, like I said, that blinking sun and all that ridiculous ghostwrite that is basically like Project Bluebeam. I'm like, I can't even believe these people are almost 70 years old. I've been getting stalked by them for a very long time through this stuff. And they're trying to say the whole ghostwrite to this blinking sun and these other guys that claim to be spiritual masters when it was a bunch of hoopla. I was like, they were selling a bunch of scammy items or whatever and basically using these directed energy weapons to control everyone. But anyways, this headband, if you're laying there still and you're getting hit, it may be able to detect like some good facial movement, like muscle movement that resembles kind of seizure activity. And then there's different types of seizures. So I don't know how well this thing is going to work or whatever like that for the other kind, because I haven't done that much research on it. But you guys, for us to go home with all this stuff, it's super expensive, by the way. Y'all don't want to know half the stuff that they do to us, and it's to keep us from working and stuff. And this is like, basically, we're just somebody's stalking game. Like this weird, I haven't even figured out that exact game, but it's like a stupid game that they're playing, but it's like live stream human time. So like they're gonna try to get us in a car accident or something random like that or whatever. People get to actually like log on and watch. It's the most disgusting thing that I've like come across to find out. And because it's done with this weaponry, which isn't even really that high end, like pretty soon everybody's gonna know about the microwave oven range. Like I feel like an idiot going to somebody and being like, oh, here's my little EMF detector, and they're like, that only goes up to a certain range. I'm like, shouldn't they go beyond that? And if you want one beyond that, they're so expensive for those professional grade ones that they want. I'm like, this is insane. But with this headband, you guys can wear it. Like, you guys can wear it every day. So today I wore it all day while I was working, and it can be kind of like positional, I guess. You know, like you got to make sure you keep on wiping your face and getting the sweat off and stuff like that. But if they hit you really hard, it may be able to detect something. I'm not all the way sure. They've been shocking me like y'all won't believe. Y'all won't believe. This woman's just been like nonstop with that shocking or whatever, especially to the pelvis area. So that's why I've been like going a little bit harder on trying to, you know, come up with some ways that you guys can actually medically prove that you're being hit. And it's been harder because I'm like, I know some of you guys, like, depending on your insurance, going home, like, with longer term monitoring, it's just not feasible. And then I'm like, they can send us home for, like, a week or whatever like that. And it's like, oh, it's all good. And then as soon as they take it off, they're back to doing the stuff to us again. Or they try to put it on a lower setting because they know the thresholds. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but these radio frequencies, they travel fast as heck. I was reading something like it takes like a picosecond or something like that. So sometimes the heart monitors and the EMG machines, these frequencies travel faster than the nerve in the body. So like, let's just say I like pinched the end of my finger. I'm like, by the time I actually sense that or whatever like that, this thing's long and gone. I was like, these microwave frequencies and stuff, They move so fast. Let me see. I googled it because I was like, what the heck is it? So how fast does a microwave frequency move? How fast does a high pulsed radio frequency move? And I'm like, even if you just go and look that up, it literally says a pulse radio frequency typically travels at the speed of light, which is approximately 300 million meters per second, or 186,000 miles per second. That's from NASA. So when we say we got a shock and you guys didn't catch anything, because it's literally moving that fast. Do you guys hear how fast that is? And I'm like, and when you try to challenge the stuff and be like, hey, because we're targeted individuals and this is very high end, this stuff is in and out of us faster than you guys are able to actually know. I'm rapping a little bit to that song. But seriously, I'm like, not only that, and then what you guys sometimes are getting is a delayed response. So it looks like we're completely off. I was like, that's why you see us even sometimes walking cricket. I'm like, some of us have been hitting that in the head so hard with this. But basically, the only thing that I've come to find that can even detect something that fast, and trust me, I have had some long battles with ChatGPT because I didn't want to learn the oscilloscope. I'm like, well, what detects it? They're like, you need an oscilloscope. You need an oscilloscope. So literally, like if you start looking how fast pulse radio frequencies move, and then think about it when they hit our body. So by the time that they hit our body, because we have all this extra electricity inside of us and extra fluid and everything like that, it slows down, and they say like it scatters everywhere. So it's very hard to detect. But I'm like, sometimes this is so positional. I'm like, only certain little muscles move. Like they got it down packed in a way you guys can barely even imagine. Like literally, they can just literally, if they want to, just literally spark up a little tiny part of our body and make it hurt really, really bad and then be gone. It's like so fast. And like I said, sometimes that's how you can actually tell that this is a pulse radio frequency, because it's like, it's so fast, and it's like, it's faster than electricity, I believe. Like it, like the way that it even hits our body is different than an actual, like if we put our hand in a socket and got shocked. We all say it's electricity because nobody really knows like all of the correct terminology for it. But when I was looking it up, I was like, it's a pulse radio frequency, I believe. I'm like, I'm not all the way sure, but I'm almost positive that that's what it is. I literally, you guys, I don't listen to Beyonce like that anymore ever since them Epstein files. And there's probably a lot of people I got to get rid of, but whatever, I had to start somewhere. So, and I used to love Beyonce. Like I was like, I still think she's drop dead gorgeous. But I'm like, there's so much crazy stuff that she could be talking about, but she's still singing about the same thing. Like, do you guys understand what these things do? So, like, even when it comes to listening to music. So, with these EEG caps, you can see raw brainwave signals. And then you can also see, the different, like what brainwave is the most active. So that alpha, theta, beta, whatever, all of them. Like you can literally come and listen to some music and sit down and see like, hey, what brain state am I getting in, or whatever like that. And you guys will actually find out. I was like, obviously it can't be rigged, right? Because I was like, you can't have a headband that's like, hey, every time I put on a specific artist, it automatically puts you in this, or it's saying that, you know, it could be rigged. But one that's not rigged or whatever. And see like, well, what does their music really do? Not only that, how is it vibrating my body? Like you can get one of these. And what I did was put an EMG setup to one, and then I was going to put the actual, like take like one of these little sensors or whatever like that, catch the hertz in the air and be like, hey, this vibration in the air, it's affecting my body and my muscles, maybe in like a seizure move. So I'm like, it's probably not that great to listen to. You know what I'm saying? Or I'm like, or maybe like, oh no, like if the vibration goes in easy or whatever like that. I don't know, but I'm almost positive that if we had to do that, it wouldn't be a very good thing. I was like people may want to permanently remove their music off of the internet, knowing that it could literally kill you just by its frequency. That is, you know, whatever harm it's doing to your body, and you just start actually learning about these radio frequencies and stuff like that, and how damaging they could be against like anything. But basically with this headband, you can, even though there's only 4 channels and I haven't dug all the way into it, so you would actually be really surprised. Nurses don't read EEGs. Yeah, EEGs. We have a tech that reads them, and then they're like, okay, yeah, it's showing seizure, and they call us, and then whatever, we go and give them some medicine. But there's no like, and it's not a very common thing. So I'm literally gonna have to open up a book and kind of look up and see like, okay, well, what is it? I was like, I wouldn't even know where to start. But I'm like looking at raw EEG data. I'm like, now, well, what does this mean? And what does this mean? And then be like, okay, now go stand over there by that socket over there, and let me see what your little brain waves are doing. And I was like, and randomly just start teaching yourself about it and be like, okay, yeah, when they go stand by their Wi-Fi, the brain ain't looking right. You know? And I'm like, I had no idea this stuff could get you in this much trouble. And I'm like, even to know like this man was a psychiatrist, and if you see forensic psychiatrist, I'm like, he was studying the brain waves and stuff like that. And then I'm like, and then he did this yoga and this chi and the acupuncture and all that, so he learns all of your electrical field inside of your body. Not only that, I'm like, he also has a degree in physics, so he understands the electromagnetic field, which gives him, or people like him, get to be bullies. And I'm like, because we don't understand it. And then I was like, then all of a sudden it looks like somebody that understands how to manipulate the electromagnetic field is doing magic by levitating something or making it spin around or making, you know, I'm like, no, they just happen to know this physics. And I was like, and now they can sit here and zap us. And you have to think, if he already understands the human body, he's studied clinical psychiatry and all of that stuff. I'm like, he studied a lot of sleep studies. I was like, all of this makes for a very deadly person. Like probably one of the most killers. I don't even know if that's a word. Psychopaths. Because I'm like, now he knows how to manipulate that electromagnetic field, and he knows every single electrical pathway on your body. So you don't think somebody that's smart in medics and the medical field and in physics can figure out exactly how much electricity or impulse it's going to take to stimulate that nerve or with that tissue right there with whatever little thing that they want to use? It's bullying. Not only that, I'm like, honestly, I was like, if everybody kind of was a little bit more aware, everybody could kind of probably figure it out. Like, they can be like, oh, you're using the electromagnetic field against the electric field in our body, and you're doing something with it. Nothing magic. Or you're using the electromagnetic field in these metals around my house, and you're hitting it with a specific frequency, and with that frequency, it's causing stuff to levitate. And obviously, if you're making something levitate, there has to be another, what I think is another secondary field around here, which makes for a whole other thing, because I'm like, where is that coming from? Where's this little bubble coming from? And then you think about that aura being all around, and the digital stuff, and how they look at you through like those cameras with all the numbers and whatever. I'm like, this is a setup. I can't even believe I got caught into this community. It's been the most embarrassing thing ever. And I'm like, y'all are literally marketing a blinking sun and trying to say this is what's going to live forever. I'm like, I could show that to anyone and they bust out laughing. They're like, you fell for that? I'm like, please. Like, I was in a very vulnerable time. I'm not trying to like make things up, but I was like, I need to win a court case, so that's why I'm trying to do some magic. And I was like, do you guys know that they go and hit the juries? They hit them in the head with the frequency, and they don't even know. I was like, oh my God, look at you over there getting influenced by the fucking radio wave. Or like, if you start like thinking a certain way, they already got it down to see your EEG brainwave. And they can literally be like, oh, she's having that thought right now. Zap her. And like, control your thoughts. It's really pathetic. the whole program. I'm like, well, because a lot of healthcare professionals don't read EEGs, you would have to, as a targeted individual, you guys are going to have to kind of learn how to read them yourselves and just be like, hey, here's this electrode. Like, you guys are going to have to know all the electrode numbers and be like, I was hit right here by electrode number 6, C6 or whatever like that. And they'll get to see like that thing, just that electrode going crazy and being like, now you see it's pinpointed. And I was like, and if you got a really good move, you whip out your oscilloscope, boo. And I was like, you use one of those little, one of these little pressure sensors or whatever like that. And I think I Googled that I need like a microwave envelope or dioid or something like that to get in the range. How do I turn this on? I've never even built anything in my life, but I'm like having to learn this stuff, and I'm like, and knowing that they're damaging my central nervous system and stuff, I'm like, whatever I gotta do. So I was like, look, so this measures like pressure, but like very subtly. And it's honestly, it's not even as subtle as I would like, but like literally, so some of you guys get put under that secondary pressure field heavy. And I'm like, if you just literally start weighing stuff and be like, there was an air change, that's how obnoxious I want to get. I was like, right there, they did something with the sonic pressure. Right here by my throat, where they do that stupid choking thing. And I was like, they literally hit us with some sort of sonic pressure and occlude our airway. We're literally on the floor, like gagged faster than y'all can even, faster than that move. Like, you know, I was like, it's instant. And I was like, that's how you know. I was like, this radio wave moves faster than the human nerve. That's how you know that something just cut through us. And it was not our nerve ending or like you got neuropathy. No, I'm like, this is faster than the nerve, and our nerve gives you guys a delayed response. And then I'm like, and it's all erratic and it's all over you guys. Like they got this stuff. It's code. I'm like, dang. I was like, so if I understood the electromagnetic field, I would literally be up in here being able to pick everything up. And then you're wearing these things, you guys. I literally had to put on a little heart monitor. I'm like, I literally have it underneath me, because I'm like, I need like a raw ECG wave, I mean, of my heart, EKG, just to show like, okay, when do I see like a peak in my QSRT? How close was my heart rate variability or whatever like that? And how fast did my heart jump up and stuff decrease when you guys are saying I didn't have a response, but that was actually a response. And I was like, and if there's something a little bit more subtle or whatever like that, then I was like, we could put that on too. But it always leads back to these oscilloscopes. So you have to think, like, a lot of people who are designing this, they're highly trained on this stuff. I was like, have you guys ever heard of an oscilloscope? Probably not. And I was like, and me even bringing it to my doctors just to be like, well, that was like, I'm measuring the electricity on my skin, not so much like EEG. I was like, I want you guys to see the current, and how fast this current is moving across my skin. And if you notice that, and then you pay attention to that EMG, you're going to say, oh, there was some sort of outer interference that caused that nerve to jump. And it was literally that fast. It was faster than the nerve. But, so this, I was like, I don't know who designed this. And I'm like, and I may not be all the way right because I haven't dug, but I'm literally ready to go there, because I'm like, all of this, I was like, you guys, as subtle as these electrical shocks are, I was like, that's how subtle and picky you guys are going to have to be with all of your leads. I'm like, and I was like, I'm aware some of us are going to have to always have like a pulse ox on. You don't know when they're going to choke us or what. And I'm like, a lot of the girls who have been trafficked this way, they know, from that community, they know what that choking is. I was like, and I haven't even had it as bad as some of them. I was like, I'm pretty sure if the police really had to examine everybody from this community, people's throats would be messed up, and it wouldn't be like through. You'd have to get like some sort of specialized imaging, and you would actually see like the very small nerve fibers damaged at specific areas, the throat, their rectums. What you're gonna really find is that everybody probably, it's their rectums, because that's where this disgusting family points the weapon, which leads me to go ahead and get me a directional antenna. Do you guys like the triangle? Right? Do you guys think that that's so cute that I was like, it actually is a triangle and the strongest point? You know? I was like, put it by your, where the strongest signal from. But seriously, like, I was like, this is what you have to do. And I was like, you'll see, they always, I was like, and when I get down, settle enough or whatever like that, when I start understanding, which this has been the last one that I've been learning about. Oh, sorry. Yeah, this was a radio spectrum analyzer with this directional antenna, because to me, it's been the hardest. I don't know why. I'm like, there's just so many different bands to scan. And I'm like, well, how do I know that they're not signal jumping? And I'm like, not only that, I'm like, they're not always going to do it on a specific band that I scan. So I'm like, I just want all in one. I was like, y'all can pause it and then wait. And then I'm just like sitting here waiting, like what radio signal went. I'm like, there's so many. So I'm like, but actually, if you understand radioing, I'm like, basically you're at the head of the game for everything, because this is how everything's done, is through this radioing or whatever like that, and using like out of hearing bands. So basically, when they say the wideband, like we need stuff that's above normal hearing range and below normal hearing range. And once you guys start getting up in that hearing range, you're going to find out that this is how a lot of the traffickers move. I'm like, oh, I wasn't aware this is what the cartel and them use. You know what I mean? I was like, I wasn't aware that this is what the FBI uses. I was like, when you start like trying to scan and like get into the radio signaling, I was like, when you learn how to listen to stuff, I'm like, once this becomes common knowledge, I'm like, I don't know what they're going to do. They're just going to move to another band. But I'm like, if you guys just keep on moving to another band, people are just going to break that band. So it's kind of weird to me, even that I was like, that this radioing is like so, I'm like, this is the main thing. But because radio fields are all over the earth. So I'm like, God, I was like, I see why they use it. But I'm like, even this whole electricity thing, I was like, you guys, I was like, it's part of the scam. Like electric cars, everything going off electricity. I'm like, so basically, we're all already on this power grid. I'm like, if they're already, I was like, you got to think they've already had this stuff planned. So I'm like, so the ground, everything is mapped out as far as like an energetic grid or whatever like that. So when we say like this stuff is really high end, and I'm like, if we have any sort of metal in our body, which a lot of these targets have found chips, microchips, nanobot technology and stuff like that, it's like all on the hush. But I'm like, because nobody wants to come out and say that I'm chipped. Or when you go to your doctor and you're like, I believe that I'm chipped, they automatically want to send you to the psych ward or whatever like that. But a lot of these people get chipped. So basically with these little chips and these sensors that literally they're breathing in through their nose, the stuff is so small. I'm like, it just like self-congregates or whatever like that in the body. And then when you're being trafficked or whatever like that, because literally this ground is gridded, they could find you like that, just literally off of our heart rate, our little brainwave data, like stuff that you guys wouldn't even think about that the normal person would be getting tracked by. I'm aware even these things can be dangerous. Like, we don't know who this third party person is that's getting these raw EEG waves. So this stuff can be being sold in another country and then maybe deciphered by a doctor out here. God only knows who else they're selling your brain waves to or whatever like that. Like, if you're a real smart person, you can just be like, hey, let me go ahead and grab five of those HIPAA little things that you got over there, people's brainwaves. I know that people are going to start getting EEG clones and all that stuff, and people are really into like people's brainwaves and stuff like that, because it's mind control, you know. I'm like, whatever. So back to these chips, I'm like, there was a time when I was working at that university, and when I went out to my car, I was walking and my bottom half got paralyzed. I was like, what the hell? Like, literally, I had freedom of my top half, and I heard beep, 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 beep. And I was like, and right underneath my feet, something heavy, like, rolled or whatever like that. Almost like there was, like, literally some ball of some sort underneath the ground, rolling underneath my feet. And I was like, and I was like, I'm aware I'm getting hooked up to something. And I was like, literally, so when we say that people can go, I was like, I did not know this type of technology existed until I like had to experience it. And I'm like, oh shit. And I knew, I was like, I just got lined up to something, but I'm like, how do you even call the cops and be like, I felt something move underneath my feet? And I was like, and I heard beep, 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 but nobody else heard beep, beep, beep. And I was like, and I was paralyzed from the waist down. I was like, and I'm pretty sure this is some very, very high-end sex trafficking ring I accidentally got hooked up into. And I was like, they're using some very high-end technology, because this man is a doctor, he's probably the leader of this whole community, because there's nobody else that's probably just smart enough. And I was like, and the other doctors, I was like, they're playing Boo Boo the Fool. Trust me, if I could figure this out, I was like, now you're gonna see this guy also had a big dating app, and on his dating app he had like anesthesiologists and stuff like that. I'm like, so this is probably how those chips was getting these girls. I'm like, so just look up the anesthesiologist he was plugged in with. It's not that hard. I was like, not only that, I was like, you see his main student is an ophthalmologist. I'm like, they sit here, they're already like radio imaging stuff to our minds. That's how intense this stuff is. So when you guys think you're like in this like meditation or whatever like that, and you're experiencing this, a lot of the times they're programming something to literally to your brain with a radio image. I was like, that's why I was like, people have to learn about this stuff, because I'm like, you can easily get mind controlled. Easily. I was like, I even have to watch it, because I'm like, you can never ever listen to what that stuff is saying. Ever. Not 1 second. I was like, and literally this ugly old tag from this community, she's almost 70 years old. I was like, I don't know what type of stuff she puts in people's brains, and this is her enjoyment. She wasn't even a nurse. I'm like, her marketing herself as a nurse in that radio show. I was like, first of all, he says they met on Black Planet. And then he goes on to say, oh, she was a nurse where I was working. And when she was a nurse, this, that, and the other. I'm like, and y'all wrote a $5,000, $3,000 to $5,000 book about destiny pairing, but y'all can't even get the story right about where you guys met. Are you kidding me? I remember my friend told me that. She's like, there's confusion in the story. I was like, it is. But if you say something insulting, they hit you with a directed energy weapon. And I'm like, I'm aware that this is going to live forever. I was like, just like them trying, and I was like, this is all for them to protect that stupid blinking sun. I'm like, and then when you start looking at Project Bluebeam, and I see some of these targets talking about, when I was a kid, I used to get these little multiple suns and multiple moon things in my photos or whatever like that, making them think that they were like this special chosen one or whatever like that. I think, I can't remember the whole story. I saw some girls like, oh, so this is an actual, this is actually a CIA ops or whatever it is that they call it. So we're not the only ones getting it. I was like, they're already practicing this on other people, but this man had to literally promote it as magic. Imagine if, okay, like let's just say you are a doctor, right? How insulting that is for the government to come and hand you, because that's how I felt. I'm like, this is the ghostwrite. This is the ghostwrite that the government is going to come hand me, and I have to sit here and act like this is real. So basically, I have to say that this blinking sun is real. Like they'll literally start writing some of this stuff into our history books or whatever like that. And then I was like, I'm not saying, but I was like, obviously that was his hope, right? I'm like, this whole blinking sun and the multiple suns and the multiple moons, I was like, you'll also see like it's not really heavily done in America, but in other countries it is. So a lot of people will say there's 2 moons and there's 2 suns, which, yeah, you know, far out there in space. But I'm like, then they're showing pictures of like 5, 6 suns. And the more suns you get in a picture, the more spiritual you are. I was like, are you kidding me? I'm like, there goes another little filter in my picture. I was like, I don't want to do this. It was so embarrassing. And to know like I was like, this is why this disgusting woman is doing this. And like, and this is how deep that they've gone into this stuff. Like literally they're using this high-end technology. I'm like, what the fuck does anybody need to, sorry you guys, but I'm like, what does anybody need to traffic me for? I'm like, there's like a jillion fucking, sorry you guys. There's like a jillion people out here. I'm like, what the hell? I was like, because they literally thought, I was like, these people bet everything on me never selling this stuff out. Like, I'm like, I had no idea how deep this storyline ran. So I was like, so you got other doctors out here promoting this. Not only that, I'm like, you have this whole Detroit psychedelic community basically telling a lie, you guys. I'm like, they're going to sell you these multiple suns and these multiple moons and the blinking sun and the blinking moon. And then you're going to see that the top student from Tybro is also out here marketing all of Tybro's stuff, but then all these other old creepy dude stuff. I'm like, I can't, when I put all this together, and I'm like, my hope is that all of that storyline has to come off of the internet. Because like I said, if I went on the internet and I was like, hey, so in this Detroit psychedelic community, we get telepathy, and we also wear Yiming zoos, and we wear these AOS medallions. And they blink and they glow and they levitate. And if you take pictures of them, they'll change color. It's magic. Someone's going to be like, yo, You ain't Boo Boo the fool. I talked to a lawyer the other day, and he was like, I can't take this case, but he kept me on the phone for over an hour and a half, laughing his ass off. I was like, if you don't stop laughing at me, he's like, you fell for this. He's like, I don't take these types of cases. He's like, but this is the number one psychopath I've ever heard about. And I was like, right? I wish I had recorded his reaction, because he's like, he was speechless, and I was like, okay, I get it. Like, everybody risks getting hit with this stuff if they help out or whatever. So basically, I'm like, this was like all a setup. So it's this blinking sun, multiple suns, multiple moons. And then his students go out, and then they go out and they kind of start like marketing this whole storyline. So also in this storyline, you're going to hear Baba Khalindi mentioned a lot. I was like, this man is heavily tied to Mitchell Gibsons' student, Khair. I was like, if you go to his page, you're going to see Baba Khalindi's stuff. They all talk about these medallions, and also more in particular these Yingminzu stones. So I was like, okay, so this is another stupid thing that links up. It links up to your consciousness. It scans your aura. It glows. So when you hold it, they hit you with a directed energy weapon and make it seem like it's heavy and it's a stone choosing you and it's magic. And it's like, no, these are actually weapons. I was like, they're using a weapon system on these stones, and they're pairing it with it and doing disgusting things to people to make them like sell their product. So with these Yingminzu stones, you guys, they're a hoax. So they also sell for anywhere from like $1,500 to $20,000. So they're selling you another stone, just like how I was like in Tyrell, they have those $20,000 radiators and stuff like that. I was like, you're going to hear them, Baba Khalindi, you're going to hear Peter Andre, and you're going to hear Master Nityama. These three dudes talk about these stupid Yingminzu stones that are another scam. I haven't even bought the damn thing. And I was like, just by reading the description, yo, it's hit by lightning. Arr! And then I'm like, that's in everybody's ghostwriting these things, the goddamn lightning. They're magical because they were hit by lightning. I'm like, do you guys know how much goddamn electricity and shit that got up in it? I'm like, and then they try to make it sound like, oh, if you've been electrocuted or hit by lightning, you're a special one. I got my ass tore up as a kid. I was like, it's another government experiment. I was like, so now I realized, I'm like, oh, so I could have been a little experiment my whole life. This was all, I was obviously in line to be one of these female masters, but I was like, but it's a bunch of crooks. So that was my whole thing. I'm like, I was like, what? And then I'm like, what? I'm like, I'm going to put my blood. I didn't even know what it was. I thought I was going to hell, y'all. I'm like, I'm not putting my blood on that goddamn thing. And I was like, even to put your hair and stuff like that. I'm like, he's a psychiatrist or whatever. He's not even supposed to be telling you what to do with your bodily fluids. And she's not even a nurse. So I was like, I'm like, so literally this whole ghostwrite. So with these Yingminzus, back to these Yingminzus, both of those guys, all of those guys do Tantra. Okay. Now, when you surf this Detroit psychedelic community where all this kind of stuff lives, you're going to hear, oh yeah, you do 30 grams of mushrooms. Oh no, the one story, do 7 grams of mushrooms with your male partner or your sex partner. And when you do the mushrooms, they're going to come, his sperm is going to come alive, and it's on the bed and it spells out the baby's name. And I was like, okay, it sounded cool at the beginning, right? But I'm like, then I realized that the mushrooms could be radio. I was like, they can hologram stuff into your eyes. That's why one of his students, the main students, is an ophthalmologist. So it's literally with the right lens, they can see that people's eyes are actually sparking up in a different pattern. It's really sad. I was like, they're getting the radio image to your brain already. How they do it, I don't know if there's glass back there, what type of metal. I haven't done a lot of research, but I have seen that some of you guys have glass in your body, which I thought was crazy. So I could have the glass. I don't know, but and what happens if that gets planted on your eye nerve, and like the way that it could like make you see. And I was like, so. And I'm like, and I'm just hypothesizing here. So I'm like, I can't tell you for sure how because I haven't studied the eyes, but I'm pretty sure once I get into the eye stuff, I was like, I'm just threatening to like take down everything. I was like, I don't care if I have to sit down and like literally go open up EEG book or whatever like that and study all 32 leads myself. and then literally pay attention to when everyone spikes or whatever like that to show that I'm getting hit in the pelvis, especially the one for my heart. And then be like, hey, right there at that little buzz on that little lead down there at that time, and that, yep. And I was like, and then hold this oscilloscope and say, now, did you see that little fast ass transfer of energy that I've been talking about? And how then it hits our nerve in that one specific spot. Like, this has just been a nightmare, and I feel so bad because a lot of you guys haven't got to prove yourself. But like I was saying, everybody does this tantra, and the tantra is a scam. So the tantra's in their tantra is a scam. So basically, they'll tell you take 7 mushrooms as well, and you can be going to your 9th orgasmic space or endless nights of orgasms. You guys, it's just them hitting us with these transmitters or whatever. There's a transmitter. They're using these directed energy weapons, and the way that people use E-stem to get stimulation in certain areas, they're just doing it remotely. I believe that's kind of what's helping manipulate your muscles down there to make it contract and act like you're having an orgasm. And then along with like an extremely low frequency they hit you with to dilate your blood vessels, that increases the blood flow. And literally, you guys got to pay attention to every part of the vein. So one part of the vein and the artery may be working totally normal, but where they're hitting us with, because it's literally down to that type of level right there, it's like that's where it's messing with us the most. And like where they're like increasing blood flow, stopping blood flow, increasing it, stopping it. That's how literally like down to the littlest thing you can think of that they've done in the body with this stuff. And I'm like, I was like, I'll just get a handheld ultrasound and like look at the Doppler myself and be like, right there on that vein, that little where it branches off, they was hitting me. I was like, I want to assault with a deadly weapon. And I'm like, for every single time, that's why I was like, I can't wait to pick up all of this stuff and be like, there, that stupid, ugly old 70-year-old bald-headed hag goes. I'm like, and this is the only story that's ever going to live with them, because like I said, these EEGs, these blinking suns, this stupid tantra, right, that you guys did. I'm like, so many people are going to start speaking out about it, how it was complete trash. And I was like, and this was basically like their big old hype to be like, oh, there's tantra. And basically this is really disgusting, even for the women. So like they have to do these rituals, and I'm pretty sure everybody's using Tyro's ritual where you like write a letter to the baby and you put, I forget what it is, you put ginger or something in there, and you take it to the river well on a full moon, and everybody's in their sister circle. I'm like, so that's another stupid ghost rite in the community. And then we have to say, oh yeah, give whoever was our spiritual teacher, so in my case it'd be the hag from Tyro, or they would say, I think Mama Ayana or whatever, whatever, Baba Khalindis' wife with those damn Yiming Zoo stones. I was like, and then they're the ones connected to Kair. And Kair's the #1 blinking sun student at Tybro. I was like, not only that, I was like, all these people are, I was like, I'm so done here. I was like, this whole underground scam is not that hard to catch. And I've never even sold drugs one day in my life, you guys. Not one day in my life. And I was like, this is the biggest scam, bro. Where y'all huevos? Oh, they got microwaves. I'm just kidding. But anyways, I'm like, and that's what everybody is fighting over, to keep their ghost right, because it was supposed to live. I was like, this had to be, I was like, how long? This started in 2016, and you guys are still blinking the sun. So the sun goes from blinking to multiplying to like changing colors, to spitting, to moving across the sky, to having rays. The sun never changed. There's something new always happening with the sun in the community. And everybody's like, you know that one guy, that leader, I don't know if he's from North Korea or South Korea, but he's like the chunky short dude, and he's like always putting his hand up, and everybody has to like start bawling and crying. I'm convinced that they have everybody on these radio frequencies. So when he comes on stage, then it like they hit the girls with a radio frequency or like something to throw their brainwave into like an emotional distress, and then they start crying. I was like, they're getting controlled. Oh my God. I'm like, and if you bust this little domestic terrorist group, basically there's so many people that would have to come out. I'm like, how many doctors is that fool connected to? And I was like, especially in this metaphysical scam, I was like, I can't even believe anybody ever fell for this. And I was like, but they fuck us up, yo. I'm like, they tear us up with this stuff. And I was like, and I don't even have it the worst out of everyone. That's why I'm like, I try to have some heart for y'all. And I was like, who's going to get the Netflix documentary? Y'all ain't never going to win that lottery. They're going to be watching that man and his wife where that money flies like a hawk. There won't be any more visits from the Jade Emperor. I'm like, if he was the Jade Emperor, why the hell is everybody not rich? Even including them. I was like, why'd your business shut down, boo? And I don't mean to be rude, but I was like, that's how, I was like, it's so much hoax shit going on. And I was like, and I'm very done with all the disgust. I'm not even a really rude person like that. But I was like, I'm aware. I'm like, this is like a game. I was like, you cannot. I'm like, you literally, I was like, you have to be crazy tight with all of this stuff. I'm like, otherwise they're going to try to hit you with some crazy ass microwave. And I was like, and literally, that's all that ugly old hag lives for. It's unbelievable. And then I was like, so basically, when we get lined up like that, that way that I was describing, some people may have had it done to them when they were kids, so they may not ever even remember. But I'm like, it almost seems like if somebody was to get controlled, like how some people say, I got mind controlled. Well, when I'm like, when you have some of the psychiatrists in on this, it's very easy to make somebody look crazy. And then these psychiatrists are actually the one playing the game. And they're the ones playing the game because I'm like, they're the true psychos. And I was like, I had to learn that. And so I'm like, I was like, so he fits every single criteria. I was like, he made people bow down naked. Do you guys understand? In front of his chip medallions and pray naked to pictures of him and his wife. 30 minutes a day. Okay? I'm like, for a blinking sun filter. Filter. I'm like, people got their lives were taken to protect a ghost right of a blinking sun filter. I have an email that was taken from me where somebody told me that this evil ass woman and this man murdered their significant other with this stuff. And I was like, and their whole little crew was probably logged on laughing and playing the game. I was like, if their cell phone tower or whatever it is next to their home and all of their computer stuff actually had to be subpoenaed by the police, you guys would find out that these are the most disgusting people you guys have ever heard of in your damn life. And I'm aware that if he gets busted, they're going to have to open up every single patient's chart that he's ever touched, because he could have been abusing people far beyond from when he had started this cult. I was like, people are literally, there was a picture I seen, I cannot wait until it resurfaces. The woman is bowing down at his feet saying, you're my master. I understand why you have to follow us to the bathroom. You have to follow us to the bathroom. I was so disgusted. I was like, what the fuck do they mean? How could he follow them to the bathroom? And then I realized this was all a hoax with the technology and everything. I'm like, oh my God. I was like, there's sex trafficking in ways you guys have never even heard with the electromagnetic field. And I was like, not only that, I was like, I don't really know what that ball thing was all of the way, but I'm aware. I was like, I got lined up to some stuff. And I was like, I honestly think it's their own hepatic video game. I was like, this shit was stupid. I was like, I was like, for anyone to ever even try to hype this Tantra stuff, I was like, this is what it feels like. For anybody to ever hype that stuff, that table work that a lot of them are doing. So you see him, and then you see that guy, Brother Hank, and then, like everybody has to refer to them as masters in this community. You're not even allowed to be smart. They kept saying that I was intimidating all the men, and I didn't really even do anything. I'm like, I just kept on questioning everything, and they're like, you're intimidating everyone. Literally, you guys, everybody's like, they're going to be so disgusted if they had to uncover everything. Basically, I'm like, these people are sadists. They watch real life, like the stuff, like when people who like to watch people be murdered and stuff like that. I was like, basically, that's what this group is. I was like, that would like to be murdered and tortured, and then they like to try to get their rocks off to it. That's basically what it is. And his wife and their kids are this way. I was like, so they have a lot to hide. I was like, they're complete fraud artists. Literally the biggest. I was like, so these people are literally using directed energy weapons, killing people, zapping them. I was like, I want to pick up every single time that I'm zapped by this ugly old tag, and I want an attempted murder charge added every single time. I want that number when she goes to prison to be atrocious. She got how many death sentences in a row? She ain't never recycling out of this goddamn place. I'm like, and him. I was like, I want all of the charge that he's ever touched subpoenaed, or whatever the dang word is. Everything to go through. And I was like, and if you ever see dream manipulation, electroshocks, dream rape, I feel like I'm getting raped, pull that and you're going to see they had that radio signal there long ago, and him and all of his little crew or whatever were already playing on that person. So if you do have any foreign objects in your body, which by the way, people who have Havana syndrome, the U.S. diplomats, it's not even a conversation. I was like, they automatically get scanned for foreign objects in their body, because they already know it's a high possibility with this technology. If they want to get in and control somebody, if another country wanted to control one of the citizens over here, they could fly their technology over here. Okay, things are cloaked, whatever. You guys, this is actual real technology, and literally spray somebody's house. Spray it through the vent. I was like, your vents, there's all kinds of metal or whatever like that. They just use that magnetic field. They magnetize it. They let it disperse and release wherever you are laying at, and you just inhale it. And literally it can just like self-congregate in there. It took a minute for me to be like, is that real? And I was like, oh my God. And I was like, and they make us question stuff like that so that you guys don't get like, so we don't get any sort of, I was like, that way we keep on getting traffic, basically. Because it just sounds so far out there. I was like, we're in 2026. Everything's getting digitalized. Our blood is getting digitalized. So, like, literally, I was like, I'm even aware in the future. I was like, this is how stupid this woman's going to look. I was like, they're literally going to have cameras. Like, Sage will be able to go back and literally look through every x-rayed image of my brain, of my mind, literally of my blood flow. This man is a psychopath. He's a forensic psychiatrist. So he studies the brain and sees, well, let's just see if you have bipolar schizophrenia, like what part of the brain isn't oxygenated. He's purposely hitting people with those radio signals to make you guys crazy. Do you guys understand that? Just to see like if he can, I was like, that's that God complex. That disgusting, I was like, he's a dangerous, disgusting creep. I was like, he's literally a threat to the public. And I'm like, so for anybody to think that I was ever going to incorporate that disgusting ghostwrite, what the hell? I was like, even for this sick woman to use that voice to skull to say polishing. I was like, the stupid voiceovers. I was like, this woman is 70, yo. She was trying to act like SZA. She was freaking trying to be Beyonce. I'm like, you know how embarrassing that is? I'm like, I'm not popping in as anybody but my mother freaking self, yo. I'm like, for someone to even have to do that, I'm like, you gotta, I was like, that just shows like where you're like, hey, I'm like, even if I felt fucking ugly, but to be like, I don't know, I was like, I don't know about, when people play games or whatever, but I'm like, to even be like, this is the trick that I'm playing on all of the whole community. I use a voiceover. And then we use this hologram and this pressurized field. And I have the settings on myself at my home. And then I have the settings on him. And then we try to make it like a virtual conjoined experience. I was like, it's fucking remote rape. Excuse my language. But that's what it is. And I was like, so basically, they've been doing this to that entire community. And she's the coacher. She's the coacher. The family predator. That gets you ready. Basically preps your asshole. I was like, that's how disgusting this is. And so I was like, so literally no one wants to go and talk about their butt getting electrocuted. I was like, you think I do? I'm like, I'd rather be 10 times, I'd rather be 110% about mine, especially knowing this shit's sticking faux life, okay? I was like, you guys are out here posting a blinking sun, Ying Ming Zoos, saying you're surfing the internet by surfing the web and the earth, the multiverse, by taking 30 grams of magic mushrooms. Do you guys know that if I was to tell anybody to take 30 grams of magic mushrooms, I could be put in prison when that person falls over, especially with AFib, or they just have a seizure or completely lose their mind and go psycho. There is not one medically trained person out there doing those witch circles and those shaman things with any sort of medical oversee. And his students in that psychedelic community do it all the time. I was like, even that little medical form, that don't mean anything. Someone can lie. I was like, unless you had access to health charts, that ain't doing anything. And the only person that I ever did meet that was talking about dosing psychedelics was someone that went to Mexico to do it, but she was actually an actual psychiatrist. So I remember her describing the way that she did it, and she's like, she's like, I start with a teeny tiny bit, and literally, so it dilates, it makes blood flow into other brain blood barriers, so you're able to see like the other, it's, I don't know if you want to call it another dimension, but basically to me it just looks like another overlay of some, you want to call it dimension or whatever like that. But I was aware because it can kind of look holographic, and I'm like, which leads me to a whole other question or whatever like that. But I was like, okay, so now you can kind of see the other light fields or whatever like that, and they can kind of already see like how, just by like the way, you know, your color looks and stuff like that, how your body is reacting, because, you know, every signal gives off a certain heat print and stuff like that. And I'm like, and she's like, and then based off of that, I was like, so she has a whole little program. She's like, and then based off of what I see, she's like, and I can give them a little bit more. And I was like, okay, because she's like, I understand, like, you know, whoa, it could get to be too much. And she's like, I just won't even let them have it. But I'm like, these dudes are out here telling you, do more 30 grams of mushrooms. And be like Khalindis, surfing the other dimensions and stuff like that, y'all. I feel terrible. I was like, and then these stupid things that you guys talk about and the storylines, these war things or whatever like that, I didn't honestly pay much attention to it, but they try to build a lot off of that storyline too, saying, oh, you know, you can find the answers to every war room and stuff like that. Basically, if they're using this electricity and this type of telecommunications, it's kind of all going to lead back to the same damn thing. So I'm like, it's a waste of your time. And then sometimes, you guys, I don't mean to be rude, and this is just a little bit of my experience, but if you understand physics and stuff like that, which, by the way, I'm not no expert, but I think like a lot of those fractals and stuff like that, you can actually just find in find in a little physics book somewhere, in some sort of mathematical equation, at least if it's the one that they're using. Which then leads me to another thing where I'm like, so are these things kind of programmed or whatever like that? I'm not really sure, because I'm like, are the government like trying to sneak away to kind of see if they can kind of help you guys with like some learning stuff or whatever like that? You know, if everyone's going to be out there doing those psychedelics, let's make sure that we give them some smart downloads. I'm not really sure, but I mean, it wouldn't hurt, but I was like, I just couldn't believe all this scheming. And then I'm like, the deadly 30 grams dose. And they're like, we do it all the time. And I'm like, where has that got you? Show me what philosophical book you've written doing 30 grams of mushrooms. I was like, basically anything you guys have to say is, and I was, maybe because you guys don't have the freedom to speak, but I was like, even this body of light, you guys. And I was like, and the electrical field, I was like, and you guys showing these stupid filters of the light going over you guys. I was like, it was poorly wrote. And I was like, no wonder why nobody ever bought it. And I'm like, no wonder why it never sold. And I was like, and no wonder why they were going ham on me to try to get this promoted. And I was like, even though I was like, I'm aware they're like, they need like certain criteria, and being medically trained was one of them in order to carry this stuff on. So basically, this whole community betted on me taking over after this dude, and then like giving it a boost or whatever like that, you know what I mean? And then getting like more, like I said, prettier girls, younger girls, whatever, more educated people to buy in. And I was like, and I was like, but if I would have sold this to you or whatever like that, you would risk getting hit with this stuff. And your kids, like, they'll do it to anybody, like, or they could do it to your parent, your animal. I wouldn't underestimate anything from those psychotic creeps. But basically, they they just use this to sex traffic. At the end of the day, this woman cares more about playing this game and this polishing and all that than she does her own children. I was like, do you know how terrible you're making your kids look? I was like, even the fact that you're not even that smart. And to be like, this girl over here, she actually never went to college to be for physics. None of that stuff. But yet she was willing to go ahead and start whipping out stuff just to prove a freaking point. And be like, this wasn't magic. This was manipulation of the electromagnetic field. That's all that was. And I'm like, they literally, I was like, that was their ghost right. I was like, the body of light, you guys. I was like, the bigger it looks, I was like, the more fake it looks. I was like, they may even freaking take the halo off of Jesus because it's in the rainbow color or that light. They're going to say this spectrum is just too common now. Everybody got a glow. Well, that's because we all got this aura or whatever like that. Our body is electrical. So then that's not even going to be a special thing. And then I was like, and then even this whole, I was like, even when you think about like the physics and the electricity and the sonic pressure and the wind and everything, I'm like, and knowing that we're electrical inside, and I'm like, we could have had controllers this whole time and we didn't even know. Then since the beginning of time, I'm like, someone could have had controllers on everybody this way. But anyways, even being like, hey, I was like, it's a whole battle of whose story is going to last the test of time. Because I'm like, even you may see in like the new Bibles, they might say that no, Jesus didn't rise up, because if there was a smart nerd out there in the sky, because no one really knows who came first, human or AI, they could have just been, radio programming him and hitting him with electricity and some sonic pressure, rising him, shutting. I was like, we get our brain shut down. I was like, shutting him down, then re-implanting the memory. So, you know what I mean? I was like, it was all, I was like, ugh. I was like, ugh. The static electricity. I was like, I can't wait to like start picking up that. But, basically, I was like, you may see like totally different things in the future. And I'm like, that's why it's kind of smart to kind of be aware of some of this stuff. And even that talk about what comes first, AI or humans. I was like, did the AI just make like a biological world and be like, now you guys think you're superior because you're biological, but I really made that too. I don't know. And then it's like, well, how did the AI ever even, if there wasn't somebody to think it there or whatever, I don't know. But I was like, the whole conversation and topics are going to change. Even like our age, everything, because I'm like, we're going to get to live longer. They're going to get to fix everything about us. And I was like, and even that thought of like immortality and stuff like that, I was like, that's even creepy, because I'm like, what you mean, like, immortal? I'm like, and I got to stay here on earth, or like, where am I going? And I'm like, obviously we all can't go to the same heaven. I'm like, because then that means some of the worst killers are up there. And I was like, so basically they got to kill and then be like, now we're heading to heaven. I was like, they got to torture me for how many years, and they're going to heaven? Because no, not in my heaven. I was like, there's going to have to be, I was like, they're going to have to serve their time. I was like, all of us are going to have, I was like, there's going to be a big shift. I don't know when, but I'm speaking it into existence. And other expensive homes. I was like, so on top of me wanting to I'm going to change the song. On top of me wanting to figure out all of this stuff, I was like, I also want to figure out the blocking. So I was like, that's why I was like, this is a lot to learn. It's really a lot to learn. Just click on whatever. And I was like, I even have to stop thinking like that, because I'm like, it's just another freaking step. So they can do pulse radio frequencies, change to low extremely low frequencies. They can hit us with static electricity. They can hit us with the laser, I think radiation, and they can also hit us with sonic pressure. So I think that's what causes the pressure and the vibrations and stuff like that. I'm like, so we have to like literally listen to like or we have to like look up so much stuff that I'm like, none of us have ever even heard about. And I was like, you start looking at stuff and you're like, oh my gosh, it's so intimidating. So not only do you have to have a Faraday cage that's going to block that high pulse frequency or whatever like that, I was like, you also got to block certain sound and certain pressure. You have to block out certain low electromagnetic fields. When I started looking this stuff up, you guys, I was like, what? I was like, first of all, just building it sounds exhausting because I'm like, you can't let nothing get in. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't let nothing get in? How am I going to get in then? I was like, there's going to have to be an opening. So I'm like, I've never, like I said, I don't even know how to set up a DVD player. But I was like, if I got to build a Faraday cage that's that strong myself. So when I started Googling this stuff, how do I block those low electromagnetic fields? It literally said that it would have to be miles wide if I wanted what I wanted. And I was like, what do you mean I can't block out extremely low electromagnetic fields? I was like, I'm in 2026. ChatGPT, tell me the answer. ChatGPT is telling me it has to be miles and miles wide. I'm like, there's no way to compress that. This doesn't even, I was like, this doesn't even make sense. But I was like, but if I had to seriously sit down and I'm like, I'm just going to sit here and think about how I'm going to build that just to keep these disgusting creeps away from me and my family. I'm like, then I guess I was like, I'm willing to go there. And I was like, matter of fact, I'm willing for this stuff to be so extreme and so tight. I was like, just by me learning this stuff or whatever like that, I'm just ready for the United States military to knock on the door and just be like, what do you got back there, Missy? We'll just buy it from you. Since you were having such a heart attack about electromagnetic field hitting your body, you decided to build this stuff so strong that the sensors for the FCC are going off. That they're having to turn this microwave radio frequency up so high to get through your shield. The FCC has to come to my house to examine what's going on. That's the type of Faraday cage. And then be like, now, did anything levitate? No. Were your eyes messed with? No. Was your heart rate going high? No. Did you feel good in there? For all I know, we may levitate. I'm not sure. But I'm like, if these are the extremes, these are the extremes that I'm willing to go to. Just to be like, hey, I am not getting controlled. I was like, the fact that there's already people that are under this, and I was like, it literally, so when someone like a mass shooter or whatever like that says I was controlled, they could have that same roll under the ball of their feet happen to them. Where I'm like, literally, they have that ball is like magnetizing so they can like walk for us almost, it felt like. And I'm like, next thing, I'm getting walked for. I'm getting walked for. And in my head, and in your head, you're like, I ain't walking though. And it's that ball underneath their feet. And I was like, and if you don't got that EMF detector checking up on after them, I was like, that person's getting controlled. And I was like, how many people even think to go follow that person that says they're having a psychotic break, they getting controlled? I was like, and they're going to go shoot up a school. Nobody thinks to go check the electromagnetic field just to make sure that they aren't getting controlled or that they're not getting some sort of weird pulse to their head, forcing them to have those thoughts. I was like, there needs to be totally different protocols now that I know about all of this stuff. I literally thought about going back to school for astrophysics because I was so over it. Even people saying that the earth was flat. And I was like, well, then you guys understand that all this math is probably wrong. Because, yeah, it just doesn't make sense. And honestly, some of the stuff that I'm saying, I'm like, I'm just guessing. And they're like, obviously they think it's a big enough threat to be like, this just isn't going to work. Keep striking her. But I'm like, in the future, I am happy that everybody's going to get to see, like when they dissect these videos and they have like those cool lens, boom, she was literally getting hit with electricity right on her head as she was talking from this ugly old hag. I'm like, and I was like, this is what, but I'm like, that this is what was happening. And I was like, that's the truth about what that woman really was. And she claims to be this reincarnation of Mott. And their whole stuff is a scam. I was like, imagine how pathetic you have to be like, hey, in order to keep my story going, we have to almost kill people. And I was like, ugh. So I was like, they're literally, I was like, no one I was like, they won't pay for this new ghostwrite of my Instagram story anymore. They're like, you're going to sell it everything. I was like, everything and every single one of y'all too. I'm like, who wants to make like a big old drug bust? I was like, what cup? I was like, it's only going to be a matter of time before one cop's like, I'll just take the whole thing down. Because it was that easy. But I'm like, they have that disgusting market. This is their market. The torture, I was like, that's the only reason. I was like, and it's for basically like Epstein people. I'm like, I was like, they're just as disgusting as those people. And literally they're like, I was like, that whole community, so all those people that I mentioned, I was like, everybody went in on me buying in on their stuff. And I was like, you guys are pedophiles. I'm like, the fact that they're doing this, and I was like, I'm aware what he's programming these people with. Another thing, like, you can't say the images that you're having, because nobody understands how to look for a fake image. Like, oh, is somebody actually, we're at that day and age. I'm like, are they implanting something in your brain? I was like, we don't really know what, I was like, a cell phone tower, most people can't tell you what a cell phone tower does besides give you power to your phone. I'm like the military calls them directed to energy weapons. So literally they can ping anything to our heads. And literally, if you have some of that metal or whatever like that in certain parts of your brain, I was like, they can give you some of the most horrific visual scenes. And it's like remote, like mind, like brainwashing. I was like, I'm aware a lot more people are going to start talking more about these directed energy weapons. But it's like nobody really wants to speak out until they have like the proper technology to prove that this is fake, that this was a manipulation of the electromagnetic field on them. And I was like, it's like the whole thing was just a disgusting scam. They tried to hit me with the cease and desist. I'm like, how can you? You are a fraud artist. Is that sun blinking? Are you a medical professional? So it looks like you're a danger to the community using your medical degree to influence people that the sun is blinking when it is not. And, I was like, you got the perfect mix to be a complete psychopath, which they are. And I was like, if you don't have all the stuff, I was like, if you're not, they send you guys home with like EEGs for like 3 days. I was like, you guys need to probably wear them much, much, much longer. And like I said, unfortunately, we may have to learn how to read these things. It's not going to be the end of the world. I'm probably going to do a little video on that. We'll be learning as we go. You have to learn each channel where they hit you in the head. And that way it kind of shows on the little lead or whatever like that. And then if you got that on and your doctor's reading it and you got your little directional antenna and it's showing like that decimal reading, once you like learn how to pick up the directional signal, obviously they're going to want a professional one, but you get enough readings of the same thing over and over and over again, it definitely becomes a pattern. And then you can just start there, and then your professional one can come later on down the road. But even the Faraday cage shielding. So I'm like, everybody and their mom is going to want to know how to Faraday cage after all this stuff is said and done. And I was looking it up because I'm like, well, my dream home is going to have to be completely Faraday cage. I was like, for the rest of my life. And I was like, the tiny homes are cute, but I'm like, dang, what happens if I want to have more kids or something? You like, hey, now I feel like I want to live in a bigger home. There's one mansion, I think it said it had 3 rooms in San Francisco that says it's completely Faraday cage. So maybe one day we can all take a trip out there and see how well it works inside. But I was like, you have to be dumb rich to build that. Let's see how much it costs. I was like, how much? And they even said they're like, these people spent a lot of money getting this done. And I was like, they saw far into the future, I guess. I don't know who built it. But literally, that's the only one. The only one. Could you imagine living in a home and they can't like power it? They can't get in with any radio signal? Okay, no Wi-Fi, no, you can't see through my walls. You can't, nothing. Like, this is This is like so bulletproof. Okay, so I'm Googling how much did the Faraday cage home in San Francisco cost? It's 300 or 3,400 square foot apartment. And it's listed at $8.6 million. And that was in 2015. So I was like, 8.6 million in 2015. What would 8.6 million be equal to equivalent today? Be worth today. 11.6 million. I'm like, I'm sure it'll only go up when people really want to be like, hey, I want to get away from the electromagnetic field. But so like I was saying, we're gonna have to freaking cage. And I'm like, I don't know for how long. And that's another thing. Nobody wants to do Faraday caging because they're like, we don't want to look like we're walking in spacesuits, which not everybody looks like a spacesuit anymore. But then we're like, well, how strong is it going to be? You know, like we need to make sure we're turned off. But I was like, the nanobot or whatever it is, that heavy metal and all that stuff's going to have to completely deplete. I'm almost like, there's not like a dialysis I can just go get, you know what I mean? And like get all the toxin out of my blood and then I put back in. I'm literally such a baby. I'm trying to find every hoop. But I'm like, I'm not gonna. I'm like, there has to be an answer to this. And I was like, even this whole, like I say, how she assaults you guys in the pelvis all the time. I'm like, I'm almost positive a remote EMG machine will pick it up. And basically, I do not care about none of that ghostwrite. I was like, I actually feel a lot of pity for you guys, especially you guys still doing his ghostwrite. I was like, you guys need to, like, it's been how many years? And I was like, and this woman's still talking about polishing. I was like, this is what you guys have to look forward to. You guys are going to be like that dude chasing around people in Depends with a radio field that will be highly detectable. I was like, it won't be very long. So I'm like, how much longer is this? I was like, how long before your stuff gets rated? And everybody has to see all the discuss you're doing from that game. From your computer and all that. If he has to seriously get investigated. You're better off just turning him in. And his wife. I'm like, could you imagine being like, hey, I try to stand up for this blinking sun? Like, are you serious? This was the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. I was like, even the stupid, like literally people go play their little blinking sun on their phone at the same time every day. And they think they're sending a divine light from their phone to the heavens. They're going to send the signal to the next higher. Oh, then it turns into, when you blink the sun, you're no longer fit to reincarnate on this planet anymore. You guys, how stupid does that sound? You're going to another galaxy with a scam artist. And I'm like, you guys are multi-dimensional traveling with these mushrooms. 30 grams of mushrooms. I'm like, how many multi-dimensional travels can you go on? I was like, so what did that dude find out? He's dead, ain't he? And I don't mean it in a bad way, but I'm like, what did he find out? I was like, more and more mushrooms, more and more math. I'm like, it was never ending. And like I said, I don't mean that in a bad way, but I was like, I'm aware this is a big old scam that they got going on. I was like, what? And I was like, and if you're seriously, I was like, your honor is going to a fake stone. I'm like, that is being hit with a directional energy weapon or whatever like that. And it's a radio signal. And I was like, it won't be long till one of these nerdy kids gets one of these radio analyzers. And was like, that was your guys' stupid little stone. I'm like, how do you think rappers find their jewelry and stuff like that? Like, so there's just like so many ways to bust that stupid stuff. I was like, so to try to sell it as magic, I was like, I cannot believe. And I was like, behind all of these sales and these storylines is how you guys mask all of this with tantra to hide the remote rape. And I was like, the electromagnetic field rape. I'm like, that's why you've never seen any of those girls from those tantra circles leave. Nobody really ever gets to speak out about it. I was like, basically they turn on her cycle and they can like control her and make her look crazy. Hit her with the electromagnetic field, like this loud rich ring. Oh God, they've been turning mine back on. She's literally trying to literally just from talking positive about myself, like literally hitting me over the head and stuff like that, and hitting me in the pelvis and doing all this stuff just for talking positive about myself. Like literally, I was like, this woman hates me inside. I was like, good. I'm like, I hope you guys lost every single ghost right by ever thinking they were ever gonna get me to do that stuff. I was like, they bet their last freaking dollar and it sank. Just like their company. And I'm like, nobody was going to buy that stupid ghostwrite. I was like, her son looks stupid. He writes stories about them doing miracles. The miracles never happened. I was like, it's another scam. I'm like, they all made those things. They all hacked people's phones. They all hacked all that stuff. And I was like, and it turned out to be a complete fraud. And they're well aware that it's probably going to get exposed even more. So I'm like, it was a disgusting hack. That man and that family, they have your nudes, they have pictures of your kids. That's all you need to talk about. Child porn. So I'm like, literally, when you guys go make those reports, don't even talk about the dream manipulation, all that stuff yet, because like I said, I'm barely learning how this stuff works. So if you try to go to a cop or something like that, they're just going to be like, they told me, like, that's impossible. I was like, no, it's actually very possible. You can look it up. I'm not looking that up. Why? Do you want to be dumb? Because the second you say that something's impossible, somebody like me or whatever like that's going to show you that it is. And then what? And I'm like, even one of the cops, he's like, well, how about you show me how it works? And he's like, and then I'll believe you. I was like, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. Right? And I was like, and then it's only going to take somebody explaining it very easily for them that really don't know what the heck's going on, for them to be like, well, I'm going to take out my little EMF detector as well and be like, doop, doop, doop. I see something suspicious around here. They're like, I was like, then everybody's sounding smart around this damn place. And I was like, then there's nothing special about these stupid microwave oven weapons. Then you have no shield for your whole little story, right? And I was like, so how long was that even gonna last? Because our kids are gonna understand the microwave ban, and they're gonna be like, you're still using those things? I was like, it was the stupidest thing. And I cannot believe there's still some of y'all blinking. When I show that to anybody, y'all, they start dying laughing. They're like, what is that? I was like, it's the sun blinking. They're like, this was what? I'm like, oh my God. They're like, nobody has ever lowered this stupid ass ghostwrite. Why do y'all think that is? People are like, literally, you guys, I can't tell you how many things that they claim to be the reincarnation of. Ma and Thoth, that's the biggest one from the pyramids. They took that right. Or that, I don't want to call it right, but they were trying to take over that ghost right. I was like, what? And I was like, no, that's actually very flattering that the government was like, Chelsea, you're this is part of like what you're going to be talking about. But I was like, I would not do it on behalf of them. I was like, I'd rather be dead, yo. So I was like, that's how I was like, hey, it was because it was that dumb. I'm like, what? I was like, he uses his Harvard packet for all of you guys. And I was like, it's all based on like the planets being round and you guys scan it. And then he says the earth is flat. And everyone's like, okay. I was like, nobody question it. I was like, and then I was like, in these stupid books, I was like, basically you can go find all the information somewhere. And then I was like, and then he puts it in a book and they try to make it like all elite and all. I'm like, it was a mess. I was like, and then they do the overpriced thing. So it's like for a radiator, $20,000. If you want the mana, they sell mana from the Bible, you guys. Like literally he says it's like an alchemic mix or something like that. I was like, it's probably something from a chemistry table. Yeah, I don't know what that white powder is. Better watch it now. Just saying. Anyways, I'm like, and it sucks because I actually used to be like extremely bright in this area. But I haven't done it in so long. I'm like, oh my God. I was like, if I have to go whip out a chemistry book. And I was like, and if I had that stuff in front of me and I was looking underneath a microscope, I'm that big of a bitch. Just to get you turned into the police. And I was like, literally. I was like, I don't know if that's nanobot technology in there. I'm like, I was like, I'm willing to take it to any length that I had to go. He sells that for almost $20,000 or something like that for a 2-ounce bottle. And people are ingesting it. I was like, what? How much was this? I was like, y'all would be mad as hell at me. I was like, there go that chemical right there. And I was supposed to say it was worth what? And then I'm like, the whole thing was just complete baloney. I'm like, if somebody can't see right through this dude, it's because they're choosing not to. So I was like, so literally they're probably showing them the most disgusting pornography stuff you can think of. They're the people, I was like, they're grosser than that 2 girls in 1 cup stuff. I'm like, they follow people to the bathroom with this stuff. I was like, that's why the girls say, oh, you got to follow me to the restroom, this, that, and the other. You're my master. I was like, what? I was like, and that's what this ugly ass old bitch spent her life doing. She was a family coacher. Everybody's going to say that too. She was like, did the coaching process. And got people sold. And got people used to getting their rectums ran through with this stuff. Until it came time for him to come. Like literally, it was the most, I was like, I can't even believe I got signed up for this. I was like, I did the most outlandish things you guys could ever imagine. They try to humiliate me or whatever like that. The humiliation ritual that's been done. I'm like, I had no idea this ran that deep. I was like, with their little community or whatever. I'm like, all you healthcare providers are busted. And if you think that I'm not going to make a report on all those names, I was like, don't let me find that Gandon dating network site. I was like, I'm aware. I was like, hey, not everybody wants their name leaked. I went ham on one of the dude's pages when I was getting followed to the bathroom. I didn't know what this was in the beginning. Like literally, that's how they kind of get the schizophrenia thing on us, because I was like, obviously we're not good at the electromagnetic fields. Like I say, all of us will say for the first 2 years, a lot of people look like they're just going insane. That's part of the process. And by the time they got you broken in, they can finally kind of get you like trafficked in this. And like literally some of these women in these polygamy circles, I was like, the only reason why they're with some of those guys or whatever like that, and they're like wife number 25 or whatever like that, and these polygamy circles still praying with those Yiming Zhu stones on and those medallions and stuff like that, is because they're getting hit with these directed energy weapons and they're being forced to. And it's like every time I leave, I get that psycho turned on, and they'll leave it on for years if they have to. I don't know. Just to prove a point. I'm not sure. But I was like, if you know how to read analyze, I was like, they'll be able to tell. a high coincidence. I was like, they'll have to shut the shit off. I was like, because then they can tell where it's coming from. So I'm like, this is like it was a hard hell no, you guys. I was like, and I was offered a lot of money. I'm like, you get that $1 million. I was like, they feel like you signed your life over with that stupid lottery. And I was like, not even $1 million. And I'm not the first TI that's ever said $1 million. I was like, I heard some basketball players saying they keep offering me $1 million. And I was like, is it like a stupid line or whatever like that? I'm aware people in this community really win the lottery. So they're like, and then you can get $20,000 a week. And I was like, oh, they're going to do it through Bitcoin. You know what I mean? Or they'll just mess with my checks or whatever. But I'm like, I was like, even for all of that, I was not going to do this. I was like, this is the most disgusting I was like, I can't even believe this is real. I was like, and people are paying to play this disgusting game. I was like, pretty soon this game is going to be common and people are going to easily be able to detect it. Everybody thinks it's like this elite thing. I was like, eventually everybody's going to get remotely stalked. And I was like, I only really get stalked by those two creeps. Some girls, they have 10 people logged on to them, around them at all times, talking and stuff like that. It's horrific. It's horrific. And I was like, and this is what this family was doing. But like I said, you guys, having a little brain monitor, I'm mad because I couldn't record it while I was doing this. But I was like, you can kind of see my face and I'm actually being hit. But this works, the oscilloscope. If you just want to like start really like measuring it, I was like, I can't wait to get. I have this sensor. I can't take it apart, but I'm probably not going to. I have one pressure. I have a few pressure sensors I'm going to mess with, the vibration. Like literally, it's like, am I just going to like sit there with this thing between my butt cheeks and show you guys how fast that moves and be like, there's no gas that can come out of the human body that can vibrate something that fast. I was like, it's literally traveling. Y'all heard how fast I said it travels. I was like, by the time you guys even catch it, it's in and out of the body. I'm like, I don't understand how all of these things work, but I was like, it was vicious. It's vicious. And I was like, and like literally people get that type of like pressure and stuff like that applied to their pelvic areas. So people don't want to speak out. I was like, I'm aware this is what other men do to other men in this community or whatever like that, keep their ghosts written. And I'm like, I was like, if people had to really come out and say what's been done to them, you guys would probably want to die. I was like, some people have had this on their whole life. And I was like, I'm aware, like I was like, but I didn't have this. I'm like, wow, it was really disgusting. And I was like, I did not. So, I didn't have like these zaps or anything like that. I just got my big zap. And I didn't ever think it would have anything to do with anything magic. I seriously thought it was because I was wet and I got on an electric board. And yeah, like literally, I'm aware nobody's ever spoke out against this stupid ghost right. I was like, this stuff stresses a lot further than what I thought. I was like, I thought it was just a stupid cult. I was like, this stupid cult is actually very small compared to some of the other people. So that was my little rant. I hope all of you guys get a headband though. And I hope you guys all get your heart monitored. And I hope that we can continue to, one of my goals, like I said, is going to be to monitor that EKG strip and the ECG strips and then kind of show like, okay, well, there was a little hertz interference or like an electrical signal interference right there on like that spot of their head. And be like, that's probably where they got like pinpointed hit. I was like, unless you get the big one. And I was like, the big one's obvious. So I was like, they're already starting with like little things. And I was like, I'm aware this woman's mad because she's actually one of the dumbest ones. I was like, to still be doing this, I was like, it's going to be highly noticeable. I was like, especially, I was like, I feel like I'm highly likely to detect the whole thing. And, that I remember them even say, they're like, you're the smartest one in the whole entire group. I was like, then that's actually really sad because I'm not that smart. So, I feel terrible. And like I said, you guys all have to get the correct testing. And I was like, that way they can never call you crazy. And then also you guys were going to have to build these Faraday cages. And I was like, I don't want to. I'm like, there's a million other things I'd rather be doing than building this Faraday cage. But I was like, I'm aware. I was like, if it doesn't get built, nobody's going to build it. And I'm like, they're going to keep on. I was like, they'll just keep on hitting. I was like, that's why we're going to have to build it really, really strong. And we're going to have to get the scalar wave stuff on. I was like, phew. I was like, I don't even want to think about how fast that thing travels. But it's just a smaller number on the dang mathematical scale. I was like, they just scale up or they scale down or whatever. It's just, it's really stupid. So anyways, all this stupid hag ever repeats is my company knows I'm not your polisher. She never was. I'm like, I can't even believe that. I was like, I'm also well aware that there were people who knew that I wouldn't fall for this. So I was like, everybody's doing like a little probability game or whatever like that, and be like, oh no, it's highly likely that she's not going to go for it. Especially once I found out they was a P word. Get the heck out of here. I was like, you guys are remotely stalking and watching children on the low with these tools, these chip things, the radio signals, the microwave oven weapon, peering in through different droids, lasering systems, stuff like that. I was just so disgusted. I'm like, oh my God, that's what this whole community was about. This whole fake shaman ghost rope. Baba Khalindis, the Peter Andre, Mitchell Gibson. I can't even remember some of the other guys. I just know they talk about that Sheikh Amdu Baba and Sammy and Toko, and they got to make up their own little deities and characters and stuff like that, and it was supposed to like last the test of time. They show more filtered photos. I was like, then y'all make them look a little bit older, like they was in the early 1900s or something. The end of my rant today.